Right away, we pick up King 6 of hearts on the button with the Nick game on. Onto the gun, raises to 700. There are a couple of conflicting dynamics at play. We've got the Nick game on with a hefty tax for losing, so I want to get involved, especially with the suited king while we're in position. But since we basically had to scrape nickels from the bottom of a fountain on property in order to buy into the game, I'm not as inclined to play weaker starting hands, particularly early on in the session before I have my bearings. One last thing is that if you get a chance to play in a private high stakes game like this one, as someone from out of town, you're expected to give action. After weighing out the pros and cons, I make the call. Small blind calls, the big blind calls to close the action. We're going 4 ways to the flop. It comes Jack 10-7 rainbow. We've got nothing except regret for putting money in pre-flop. Checks to us. We're not going to try and bluff 3 opponents. I check back. The turn is the 6 of diamonds, giving us 4th pair. The small blind and big blind check. The initial pre-flop raiser bets 1200. It feels fishy that he's betting the turn when a 6 comes out that almost definitely didn't help him, but it's hard to imagine that we're best when half the table has cards. I fold. We've got $700 less than we had a few minutes ago. The small blind calls. The big blind folds. It's down to heads up. The river is another 10. The small blind checks. Onto the gun is concerned that his opponent may be strong. He checks back. Neither player wants to show their cards. The small blind eventually reveals that he has queen deuce of diamonds. He turned a diamond draw and bricked the river. It's not going to win it. Onto the gun has ace 9. He had 1 over and a gut shot straight draw. I folded what would have been the winning hand, but we get some valuable information on the small blind, who's clearly playing an extremely wide range from out of position. Next, we're dealt pocket 5s in the small blind. The Nick game is on, as it basically is nearly every hand since a new one starts whenever there's a dealer change. There are just a few players left who need to win a hand. I'm still trying to mentally get settled since I've only been playing for about 15 minutes. There's always a lot going on when I'm trying to film a session because I have to get notes prepared and my bankroll app going, in addition to writing down the details of hands right after they happen. So I'm pretty perplexed when I see the cutoff raised to 1200. I've never played with any of these guys before, so I'm not sure if this opponent just opens a 6x normally or what. It puts me in an awkward spot with pocket 5s. I don't like any options. I hate to have to fold a pocket pair. 3-betting over a massive raise isn't ideal, and calling when effective stack sizes aren't super deep while we're out of position isn't great either. Ultimately, I call to see a flop and hopefully win a hand to avoid having to pay the Nick game tax. We're heads up. The flop comes ace queen 7 rainbow. We've got 4th pair on a board that's going to be much better for the pre-flop raiser. I check. If the opponent breathes on this pot, I'm going to get out as quickly as possible. Instead, he checks back, giving us a chance to improve for free. The turn is another ace. It doesn't do much for us. I contemplate turning our hand into a bluff in order to steal the pot, but I think better of it in case we're up against a monster. I check again. The cutoff was nice to us on the previous street. That isn't the case now. The opponent grabs chips and bets 2300. Is there some chance we're best here? Possibly, but we don't need to get out of line taking a stand. I fold. The opponent turns over ace 8 offsuit. He turned trips. As the button's trying to exchange 6 purple $500 chips with me for 3 of my orange 1K chips, the table notifies me that I just lost the Nick game and need to pay the other 6 players at the table $500 each. I had no idea it was down to heads up because I was in a whirlwind, getting set up to film the session, covering the highest stakes game that I've played all year. They also used the nip buttons the opposite way that I'm accustomed to, which made things even more confusing for me. Rather than everyone starting out with a nip button that they get rid of once they win a pot, players put a $2 chip in front of them once they win a pot. With a lot of things going on all at once and me having nerves, I was completely lost, not realizing the cutoff and I were the only 2 players left who hadn't won a hand. All of a sudden, our opponent's big pre-flop raise to 1200 makes way more sense. Had I known that it was just 2 of us left, I probably would have 3-bet jammed pocket 5s. Maybe the opponent would have called, and I'd have lost my first buy-in in an instant, or maybe I'd have won and could have avoided paying out an additional $3,000 to the table, which is a significant portion of what I just bought in for 16 minutes ago. I'm immediately stuck $6,000. A bit later, we're dealt Jack 8 offsuit middle position during a 7-handed bomb pot. Everyone puts in $300 each, and we go straight to a flop. It comes Jack 10-4 rainbow. We've got top pair with a weak kicker, 6 opponents, and a couple thousand in the middle. It's a perfect recipe for us to get in a lot of trouble. Checks to me, it's tough to ever feel comfortable with one pair in a bomb pot when there are so many other players that we have to beat and so many ways that we could lose, but I can't let the other guys see a free card. I make a small bet of 600 to hopefully clear out some of the field. It folds to the small blind. I'm glad to see that. He somewhat nonchalantly calls. He's got over 100,000 in front of him and doesn't need to win this pot like we do. I get the sense that he doesn't have much of a hand, maybe a lower pair of some sort that he wants to see the turn with. The remaining players fold, it's down to heads up, and we're in position, which is about the best outcome. The turn is the 3 of spades. Is it a brick? In an ordinary pot it would be, but maybe the small blind called our bet with Jack 3 offsuit, 10-3 suited, or 4-3 suited. In bomb pots, people can have anything. The opponent checks. I can't get too preoccupied with strange ways that we could have lost the lead. My read on the situation was that we had the best hand with top pair on the flop. It's unlikely that the 3 changed anything. It's not as if this is a massive pot for a 100-200 game, but this is an important one for us to win while we're playing with case money. I bet 2,000 in order to charge draws and worse one pair hands. The small blind folds immediately. Maybe he just had a gut shot straight draw or perhaps second or third pair. I show the jack. We get a very significant pot pushed towards us in order to settle the nerves and relieve some pressure. Here we're dealt ace-queen offsuit under the gun in a rare hand without the nick game going. I kick things off with a raise to 600. Winning this without any resistance would be fine with me. That's not what happens though. The big blind calls, which he'll be doing with a wide range. We're heads up in position. The flop comes 9-7 deuce, all clubs. We're not holding a club, so it's not particularly good for us. The big blind is going to defend pre-flop with a lot of suited hands. It wouldn't be shocking if the opponent already had a flush. He checks. With the flop containing all relatively low cards that don't really block our flopped flushes, we have the green light to bet small with our entire range. We can have all the ace-high flushes. We can have king 10, queen 10, jack 10 flushes. If the flop were ace 10, 8, all clubs, it'd be a much different story and we wouldn't want to bluff as much because the only combos of flushes we'd have when we open from under the gun are basically king queen, king jack, and queen jack of clubs, maybe some king 9, queen 9, and jack 9 as well, but it would drastically reduce the amount of flushes we'd have. On this flop, it's a much better situation for us. I bet 300. It's an annoying spot for the opponent because he won't want to fold a lot of combos that could be drawing near dead. He calls, which he might do with all sorts of one pair hands. The turn is the 4 of clubs. They're now 4 to the flush on board for a suit that we don't have. The big blind checks. Another low club isn't bad for us to continue firing. The big blind shouldn't have a ton of ace-x offsuit hands containing the ace of clubs. We're going to fire a second barrel to keep the pressure on our opponent. I bet 1,200. Even if the big blind has a flush that's, let's say, 10 high, he's not going to feel great about it. The opponent folds immediately. It's a fun bluff that we get through with complete air. The start of the session was as rocky as it could get, but now we're way more comfortable as we're inching our way out of the hole. We've got the nick game going on again with ace-6 suited under the gun. 4 of us are competing to win a hand in order to not have to pay out several thousand. I raise to 700. It's nice to pick up a playable starting hand with removal of combos that might 3-bet us. The cutoff is the only caller. He's already won a hand and doesn't need to fight as hard for the pot. We're heads up with someone who's not on the hook to potentially have to pay the nit tax. The flop comes queen 5-4 with 2 spades. We've got the flush draw with 1 over and a backdoor straight draw. Often, I'll check to the in-position player, but our hand is plenty strong enough to warrant a bet. We need to win. I bet 700 one more time into someone who has well over 150,000 in front of him, but he's not interested in sticking around.
Flop no pair, I'm gonna fold.
We have to show our hand, which is likely best, or at least has tons of outs. Taking this one down allows us to avoid losing the nick game, and we'll receive $500 from the last player to not win a pot. We're getting closer and closer to Profitville, but can't seem to win all that substantial of a pot to get over the hump. At least things are mostly going our way after the first 20 minutes of playing. We haven't lost any additional nick games.